The rich CEO was cold and alone, until he saw three little girls carrying a heavy bag. One morning, Alexander, the CEO, sat in his large house feeling empty. His success gave him money, but it never gave him peace. He had no family, no children, and no real happiness. Every day looked the same, and his heart felt heavy. That morning, he decided to walk outside. As he walked, he noticed three small girls struggling with a heavy bag. They were weak but trying hard together. The eldest girl held one side, the middle one pushed from behind, and the youngest tried to help with her tiny hands. They stopped again and again. But they did not give up. Alexander watched closely. Something inside him moved. He had never cared about strangers, but these little girls caught his attention. He walked toward them and asked, "Why are you carrying this bag?" The eldest girl answered, "We are taking it to our mother. She is waiting at home." He asked again, "Isn't it too heavy for you?" The youngest whispered, "We have no one else to help us." Alexander felt a pain in his chest. Their small faces showed courage, something his wealth could never buy. He stepped forward, lifted the bag with ease, and said, "I will help you. Show me the way." The girls looked at each other surprised. Slowly, they trusted him and walked ahead. On the way, Alexander asked their names. The eldest said, "I am Sarah." The second said, "I am Lily." The youngest said softly, "I am Emma." They reached a small house. The door was weak, and the room inside was simple. On the bed, a woman was lying sick. She looked pale and tired. But her eyes lit up when she saw her daughters. Sarah spoke, "Mama, he helped us carry the bag." The woman looked at Alexander with gratitude. "Thank you, sir. I cannot repay you." Alexander shook his head. "You don't need to repay me." He placed the bag down. For a moment, he stood silently, feeling something new. The house was poor, but it had love. His mansion was rich, but it was empty. As he turned to leave, little Emma held his sleeve and asked, "Will you come again?" Alexander froze. No one had ever asked him that before. He looked into her innocent eyes and nodded. "Yes, I will." That night, back in his mansion, Alexander could not forget them. He thought about Sarah, Lily, Emma, and their mother. He thought about their strength and their love. For the first time in years, he felt his heart soften. The next morning, he woke up early. He did not open his business files. He did not call his assistants. Instead, he wanted to walk again. Deep inside, he knew he was not the same man anymore. And it all began because he saw three little girls carrying a heavy bag. That night Alexander could not sleep. The mansion was quiet as always, but his heart was not. He kept thinking about Sarah, Lily, and Emma. He remembered their small house, their mother's weak smile, and Emma's innocent question, "Will you come again?" He walked to his study, opened his files, but the numbers and reports felt meaningless. For years, his entire life was built on money and success. Yet one moment with three little girls had shaken everything inside him. He realized he wanted to see them again, not because of pity, but because they gave him something he had lost: warmth. The next day, after finishing a short meeting, Alexander went back to their street. He carried a bag filled with food and medicines. As he reached the small home, he saw the girls outside, trying to fix a broken chair. They looked up and smiled as soon as they saw him. Their eyes shined with trust. Sarah stood up quickly. "You came back," she said with relief. Alexander nodded and handed her the bag. "This is for your mother." They invited him inside. The mother was surprised to see him again. She tried to rise from the bed but was too weak. "Sir, you shouldn't trouble yourself," she whispered. Alexander sat on the chair near her. "It's no trouble. You need rest. Let them handle the small things. And let me handle the big things." Her eyes filled with tears, but she stayed quiet. The girls opened the bag, their little hands touching the fruit and medicine with joy. They rushed to their mother, showing her what he had brought. For Alexander, their happiness was more valuable than all the wealth he owned. He stayed longer that day. He asked Sarah about her studies, and she lowered her head. "I had to stop going to school to take care of Mama," she admitted. Lily added, "I also stay home. Only Emma sometimes goes to the small school nearby." Alexander's chest tightened. He thought of his own childhood. His parents had given him the best education. But he had lost them too soon. Now he saw these children forced to sacrifice their future for survival. He looked at Sarah and said firmly, "You are smart. You should be studying. I will help you." Sarah's eyes widened. "But why? We don't even know you well." Alexander took a deep breath. "Because I see myself in you. I once lost my parents too. And I know how hard it is when life gives you nothing but struggle." The room fell silent. Even the girls could sense the sadness in his voice. Their mother looked at him with kindness. "Sir, you have a good heart. Maybe God sent you here for us." Alexander felt something stir inside him again. He did not believe in fate, but at that moment, he wondered if this meeting was truly an accident. Before leaving, Emma ran after him again. She held his hand tightly and whispered, "Don't forget us." He knelt down, looked into her eyes, and said, "I could never forget you." When Alexander returned to his mansion, the silence felt even heavier than before. He sat in the big dining room where plates of food were laid for him, but none of it mattered. He thought of the small family who ate with gratitude and love. He realized his wealth meant nothing without people to share it with. That evening, he made a decision. He called his assistant and told him to prepare school forms and basic supplies for 3 children. The assistant was confused but followed orders. Alexander did not explain, but deep inside he knew this was the beginning of something bigger than himself. For the first time in years, Alexander felt alive. He was not just a CEO anymore. He was a man who had found a reason to care again. The next day Alexander returned with books, pencils, and school forms neatly packed in a bag. His driver offered to carry them, but Alexander refused. He wanted to do it himself. He wanted to feel every step of this new path he was walking. When he arrived at the small house, the girls ran to greet him. Sarah looked surprised to see the bag in his hand. "What is this?" she asked. Alexander smiled faintly. "These are for you. You and your sister should study. You have a right to education." Sarah hesitated. "But we don't have money for school." Alexander handed her the forms. "You don't need to worry about money. I will take care of it." Lily and Emma's eyes widened with excitement. Emma clapped her little hands. "Does that mean I can go to school every day?" "Yes," Alexander replied. "And Sarah too. All of you." Their mother, lying on the bed, watched quietly with tears in her eyes. "Sir, you are doing too much. We cannot repay this." Alexander shook his head. "You don't need to repay me. Just promise me one thing. Let your daughters dream again." Sarah clutched the books tightly to her chest. She had once dreamed of becoming a teacher but had buried that dream when her father died. Now, for the first time, she felt it return. Over the next few days, Alexander arranged everything. The school accepted the girls, and uniforms were ordered. On the first morning of their classes, Alexander himself came to pick them up. He stood at the door as the girls stepped out in their new uniforms. Sarah looked shy, Lily tried to hide her smile, and Emma skipped happily. "You all look perfect," Alexander said. The girls laughed softly, proud of themselves. Their mother whispered a prayer of gratitude as she watched from the doorway. On the way to school, Alexander listened to their chatter. Sarah talked about her favorite subject. Lily said she wanted to draw pictures, and Emma just hummed a song. Their voices filled the silence he once hated. For years, his car rides were filled only with business calls. Now, the sound of 3 children made the ride feel alive. At the school gate, the girls held his hands tightly, nervous to enter. Alexander knelt down and said, "Don't be afraid. You belong here. This is your place as much as anyone else's." Sarah nodded firmly. "We will study hard." Emma whispered, "Will you come back for us?" Alexander smiled. "Always." That day, Alexander sat in his office, but he could not focus on the charts and numbers. His thoughts stayed with the girls. He imagined them in class, opening books, learning letters and smiling. He realized his investments were not only in companies now. He was investing in lives, and it gave him a joy that no business deal had ever given him. In the evening, he returned to the school to pick them up. The girls rushed out, full of stories. Lily showed him a drawing, Sarah proudly spoke about solving a math problem, and Emma said she made a new friend. Alexander listened carefully, nodding at every word. His heart swelled with pride. When they reached home, their mother welcomed them with open arms. She looked at Alexander and said, "You have changed everything for them. You gave them back their childhood." Alexander stayed for dinner that night. The meal was simple, bread and soup, but it tasted richer than the finest dishes he had eaten at his mansion. The girls sat close to him, talking and laughing. For the first time in years, Alexander felt like part of a family. After dinner, Sarah brought out her notebook and showed him her handwriting. Lily asked him to look at her picture. Emma curled up beside him, resting her head on his arm. Alexander felt something he had never felt before. Belonging. Later, as he walked back to his mansion, he thought about his empty halls and silent rooms. They no longer felt like home. The small house of Sarah, Lily, and Emma felt more alive than all his wealth. That night, Alexander made another decision. He would not only support their education but also make sure their mother recovered. He called his doctor and arranged for her treatment. For the first time in years, Alexander's heart felt light. He realized that love and kindness had power greater than money. And deep inside, he knew his life would never be the same again. Alexander kept his promise about the mother's treatment. The very next day, a doctor visited the small house. He checked her carefully, gave medicine, and explained that with proper care she would slowly recover. The girls watched with hopeful eyes, and Alexander stood quietly, determined to give them back the health and strength they deserved. When the doctor left, the mother said softly, "You didn't have to do this. But you are saving my life." Alexander replied, "Your daughters need you. They are strong, but no child should grow without a mother. I can help with money, but only you can give them love." Her eyes filled with tears. She placed her hand on her daughters' heads and whispered, "God bless you." And days passed, and the girls continued school. Every afternoon, Alexander came to pick them up. The ride home became a time of laughter and stories. Sarah often shared what she learned in class, Lily showed her drawings, and Emma told funny little tales about her new friends. For Alexander, these simple moments became the best part of his day. In his office, his assistants noticed a change. He smiled more, spoke with patience, and no longer spent long nights lost in reports. One of them whispered, "The boss looks different." Almost happy. But none of them knew why. One evening, after dropping the girls home, Alexander stayed behind. Sarah asked him to help with homework. He sat beside her at the small wooden table, guiding her through sums and reading. Lily drew pictures and proudly showed him, while Emma climbed onto his lap, listening to every word. The mother watched quietly from her bed, her heart warming at the sight. Alexander had never known this kind of closeness. His own childhood had been lonely, shaped by strict rules and early loss. Now, sitting in a poor but loving home, he felt the meaning of family. Later that night, as he prepared to leave, Sarah asked, "Why are you doing all this for us?" Alexander paused. "Because I know what it feels like to be alone. And I don't want you to feel that way. Not while I can help." Sarah lowered her eyes. "You are not alone anymore. You have us." Those words stayed with him as he walked back to his mansion. For years, his life had been defined by walls, meetings, and empty halls. Now, 3 little girls were breaking those walls without even trying. The next week, the mother grew a little stronger. With the new medicine, her face showed more color, and her voice grew firmer. One morning, she was able to sit up for breakfast with her daughters. Alexander joined them, and the girls clapped with joy seeing their mother eat properly. "You gave us this gift," the mother told him. "No," Alexander replied. "You gave me a gift. You showed me what family looks like." Over time, Alexander's visits became daily. Sometimes he came with groceries, sometimes with books, sometimes with nothing at all but his presence. And every time, the girls ran to greet him like he was part of their world. One afternoon, Emma surprised him with a drawing. She had drawn a picture of herself, Sarah, Lily, their mother, and Alexander all standing together. At the bottom she had written, "My family." Alexander's hands trembled as he held the paper. No one had ever called him family since he was a child. He looked at Emma, speechless, while she smiled with pure innocence. That night in his mansion, he placed the drawing on his desk. It was more valuable than every award he had ever received. Meanwhile, word spread in the neighborhood. People noticed the rich CEO spending time in the small house. Some whispered in curiosity, some in surprise, but Alexander ignored them all. For him, the only thing that mattered was the 3 girls and their mother. One evening, as he walked them home from school, Sarah said, "We want to do something for you too." Alexander chuckled. "You've already done more for me than you know." Lily insisted, "No, we want to help. You always bring us things. We want to give you something." He smiled warmly. "Then promise me this. Study hard, take care of your mother, and never give up on your dreams. That will be the greatest gift you can give me." They nodded seriously, and in their eyes, he saw determination. Alexander's life was changing quickly, but he didn't resist. The cold walls of his mansion no longer controlled him. Every day spent with Sarah, Lily, and Emma gave him a new sense of belonging. He wasn't just a CEO anymore. He was becoming something more, a guardian, a friend, and perhaps even a father figure. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of a journey he had never expected to take. The days turned into weeks, and Alexander's bond with the girls grew stronger. Every time he walked through the door of their small home, their eyes lit up with joy. He began to notice little details about them. How Sarah always tried to act like a grown-up. How Lily quietly observed everything before speaking. And how Emma's laughter could brighten even the dullest evening. One afternoon, when Alexander arrived, Sarah was reading aloud from her new book. Lily was sketching on a piece of paper, and Emma was humming as she braided her doll's hair. The house felt alive with energy, and Alexander sat quietly, just watching. For a man who once lived in silence, this noise felt like music. The mother, still weak but slowly recovering, whispered to him, "You've given them back their childhood. I thought they would lose it too soon." Alexander replied softly, "They gave me back something too. They gave me life." That weekend, Alexander surprised the girls with a visit to the library. Their eyes widened at the shelves filled with books. Sarah ran her fingers across the covers, unable to decide which to pick first. Lily stood in awe, staring at the rows of stories waiting to be told. Emma tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Can we really take these home?" Alexander nodded. "Yes, you can borrow them. Read as many as you want. For hours." He watched them explore, their joy reminding him of the childhood he had lost too early. When they left, each girl carried a book tightly against her chest, as if it were treasure. On the way home, Sarah said, "We want you to stay for dinner tonight." Alexander hesitated. He was used to fine meals prepared by chefs in his mansion. But something inside him wanted their invitation more than anything else. "I'll stay," he said with a smile. That evening, they prepared a simple meal, bread, rice, and a little soup. Sarah set the table carefully, Lily helped serve. And Emma kept running back and forth, laughing. When they all sat together, Alexander looked around the table and felt something stir deep inside him. For years, he had eaten alone in silence. Now the laughter of 3 girls filled the air, and the warmth of family surrounded him. During the meal, Sarah asked him questions about his work. "What do you do all day?" Alexander chuckled. "I run companies. I make decisions that affect many people." Lily tilted her head. "Do you like it?" He paused. "I used to think I did. But now I realize I like this more." Emma giggled. "You mean eating with us?" Alexander smiled. "Yes, exactly that." The girls laughed. And even their mother smiled softly. It was a moment Alexander knew he would never forget. After dinner, the girls insisted on showing him their schoolwork. Sarah proudly read her essay, Lily showed her drawings, and Emma sang a song she had learned. Alexander clapped for each of them, and their faces glowed with pride. Later, as the night grew late, the mother pulled Alexander aside. Her voice was weak but firm. "I don't know why you chose us. But you've become part of this family. My daughters see you as more than a visitor. They see you as someone they can depend on." Alexander's chest tightened. He had never been told such words before. "They've given me more than I could ever give them," he replied. Walking back to his mansion, he thought about her words. Depend on him. No one had ever depended on him in a personal way. People relied on his money, his business, his power, but never on his heart. Now 3 little girls trusted him completely, and that responsibility felt both heavy and beautiful. The next day at work, Alexander's colleagues noticed his distraction. He no longer cared about endless meetings or profits. Instead, he found himself drawing little sketches on his notepad. 3 stick figures of children, holding hands. His assistant asked, "Sir, Is something wrong? Alexander simply smiled. For the first time in my life, everything feels right. That evening, he visited again. This time he brought board games for the girls. They all sat on the floor, playing together, laughing loudly when Emma made silly moves. Alexander joined in, his laughter mixing with theirs. For a man once known as cold and distant, this warmth felt like a miracle. As the night ended, Sarah looked at him seriously. You're not just helping us, are you? You're staying because you want to. Alexander nodded slowly. Yes, Sarah. I want to. She smiled and said, then you're not alone anymore. Those words echoed in his heart as he left their home. For years, loneliness had been his closest companion. Now, 3 little girls and their mother had broken that emptiness. He realized that what he once thought was impossible was now true. He belonged somewhere. And deep inside, he knew his life was being rebuilt, not by wealth, but by love. 2 days passed, and the bond between Alexander and the family grew deeper. What started as a simple act of kindness, had turned into a journey of love, trust, and belonging. Each time he walked into their small home, he no longer felt like a visitor. He felt like someone who belonged there. The girls now waited for him by the window, their faces lighting up the moment they saw him approach. Emma would run to the door first, her tiny arms wrapping around his legs. Sarah and Lily would follow, smiling with the kind of warmth Alexander had never known before. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, and painted the sky with shades of gold, Alexander gathered the girls and their mother. He looked at them with a seriousness they had never seen before. I want to tell you something important, he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. The girls grew quiet. Their mother, still frail but stronger than before, looked at him with questioning eyes. Alexander took a deep breath. I came into your lives by chance. I thought I was helping you. But the truth is, you saved me. You gave me a family when I didn't have one. You gave me love when I thought I'd never feel it again. Sarah's eyes glistened. We didn't save you. We just let you in. He smiled softly. And that was the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Emma, with her innocent voice, asked, does that mean you'll stay forever? Alexander knelt down so his eyes met hers. Yes, Emma. Forever. The little girl's face lit up, and she threw her arms around his neck. Lily and Sarah joined in, hugging him tightly. Even their mother wiped away tears, her heart full of gratitude. That night, as they all shared a simple dinner together, Alexander realized something profound. His life had once been measured in profits, buildings and numbers. Now it was measured in smiles, laughter, and love. The emptiness of his mansion no longer mattered, because he had found a true home in the hearts of 3 little girls and their mother. The next morning, Alexander made a decision that would change everything. He went to his office, called in his board of directors, and announced a bold step. From today, he declared, our company will dedicate a large part of its resources to helping children and families in need. Wealth means nothing if it cannot change lives. His words shocked the board, but they could not deny the conviction in his voice. For the first time, Alexander's empire was not just about power, it was about purpose. When he returned to the girls that evening, he told them what he had done. Sarah's eyes widened. You're going to help other children too? Yes, Alexander replied. Because of you, I finally understand what truly matters. Lily whispered. Then it's not just us you saved. You're going to save many more. He nodded, his heart swelling with pride. All because of you 3. The weeks later, as their mother stood stronger and healthier, Alexander hosted a small celebration in their home. He brought food, laughter, and joy. For the first time in years, the house felt like it was bursting with life. The girls danced around him, their laughter echoing through the walls. Sarah read aloud from her book. Lily displayed her newest drawings, and Emma sang a song so sweet it brought tears to everyone's eyes. As Alexander watched them, he knew this was the life he had always longed for. Not the life of luxury, but the life of love. He stood up, raised a glass of juice, and spoke. To family. Not the one we are born with, but the one we choose, the one that chooses us. To love that heals, to hope that grows, and to miracles that happen when we least expect them. Everyone clapped, and the girls cheered. That night, Before leaving, Sarah pulled him aside and whispered, "You'll never be alone again, Alexander." He smiled, his heart finally at peace. "And neither will you." For the first time in his life, Alexander understood the true meaning of wealth. It wasn't in money, power, or possessions. It was in moments like these, moments filled with laughter, love, and belonging. He walked home under the stars, but for the first time, the mansion didn't feel empty. Because now, no matter where he went, he carried his family in his heart. And that was the miracle he had been waiting for all his life. This story reminds us that sometimes, the richest people are not those who own the most, but those who love the most. Alexander thought he had everything. But it was only when he gave love that he truly became rich. What did you learn from this story? Comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that touch your heart. Thank you so much for giving your precious time.